Welcome to this Dependency special interview. You will hear from a young lady who came here. You will hear of her journey, how she got here, and what happened to her when she landed here. She took a chance, and we are about to have an interview with her. Her name is Maria. Here's what happened to Maria.
My name is Maria. I'm 18 years old. I am from the central part of Venezuela. And today I come to tell you about my experience in Trinidad and Tobago.
Maria, tell us, what was it like growing up in Venezuela?
I grew up in Venezuela and I had a beautiful experience. My parents were always with me. In the 17 years that I've been in Venezuela with them, my family is very humble. They are workers, and I had a beautiful childhood, always surrounded by my family, by love, and my 3 sisters.
Now, Maria, you went to school in Venezuela. Tell us about that. Tell us about your education and what was your journey like with that in Venezuela?
Yes, I went to school. I finished high school, was about to go to university in March of this year, 2020.
Tell us about your family, Maria. Did you come from a poor family, rich family, middle class family? Tell us about that.
Yes, both parents work. Both parents are engineers. And my mom at the moment is studying again, primary education.
So you came from a well-off family. You all were happy growing up in Venezuela. You didn't have a care in the world, right?
Yes, you can say that. My family has always supported me in anything I wanted to do while I was there. And any obstacle that we would find, we would always try to get over it.
So, Maria, is it safe to say then that where you grew up, the struggles of the everyday Venezuelan national, or even the downturn in the economy, the sanctions, that didn't affect your family at all?
Yes, obviously, all cities were going through these situations, but even though, above all, we were not in dire necessity, so we didn't have to go through that.
So what made you decide to come to Trinidad then? You risked your life, literally. Why did you decide to come to Trinidad and Tobago?
Because I wanted to get to know new horizons, experiences. I wanted to know more, something more than just my own country.
Now, did you discuss coming to Trinidad with your family? Did you tell anyone at all?
No, I did not mention it to anyone.
Why didn't you?
I knew that if I shared this with a close friend, most probably they would tell my parents, and I knew that my parents will not permit me to leave home in that way.
Did you have a boyfriend at the time in Venezuela?
Yes. Yes, I had.
Did you discuss it with him at all?
I did not tell him about deciding to come here, but on several occasions I did mention that I wanted to leave the country, but I did not tell him that I was coming here.
So, who encouraged you to come to Trinidad, and where did you meet this person?
Through a friend, I met this girl at a disco. This friend was supposed to be my best friend, and at a disco we went out that night. We shared information. We spoke about what each one of us were doing at the time, and a few days after, this friend contacted me via Facebook.
So this friend started off as being a stranger, but then she sent you a friend request on Facebook, and that you all started communicating from there.
Yes, And I accepted her Facebook request because we had met that night, we had shared information, and I thought she would become another friend like the other friends I have on Facebook.
So who asked the question about coming to Trinidad? Did you ask her or did she invite you to come to Trinidad?
No, ella me había escrito.
No.
Yo le pregunté
We
que dónde estaba.
were chatting on Facebook, but then for about a month, I didn't hear about her. I didn't hear of her. So I wrote her and asked her about what she was doing. And after conversing, then she told me that she was in Trinidad and Tobago and that things here were going well for her and that I could come to Trinidad and Tobago and she would help me.
So this friend, was she Venezuelan or Trinidadian?
Venezuelan.
So when you got into contact with her again, what was the conversation like and who made the decision now for you to come to Trinidad?
Cuando yo la contacté,
When I contacted her
estábamos hablando de que
again,
ella estaba acá,
we spoke and she told me that things were going well with her here, that she was living alone here, and days after she offered me if I wanted to come, and that she would help me and support me, and I then decided that I would come.
Did she ask about your family or did you tell her that your family would not find favor with you coming to Trinidad?
Cuando tocamos ese
I did
tema,
not
yo le dije,
immediately tell her yes that I would go. I told her that I would think about it. I'll give her an answer later because I was afraid, I was nervous, and I told her that I did not think that my family would accept it. And she told me not to tell my family about it because then they would not let me go.
So didn't you become suspicious with that answer?
sí,
Yes, I had a little doubt, but I never imagined what would come in the future.
So when did you finally decide to let her know that you're ready to come to Trinidad?
About 2 weeks later,
What kind of arrangement was made to come to Trinidad?
ella me dijo que
she
hiciera-
told me to pack a small suitcase, not to bring too many clothes, that she would have a taxi pick me up, and this taxi would take me to Tucupita, where I will spend one night. But I ended up spending 5 nights before the boat came.
So tell us now, how did you prepare to leave home by packing and not making your family suspicious?
The night before, which was Friday, I went out with my friends. And I then prepared a bag with my clothes. And I went to the party, and the next morning, the car passed and picked me up.
So you had planned not to go back home once you went to that party. It was to head for Trinidad.
Yes.
So did it concern you that your family would be worried that something probably bad has happened to you in Venezuela?
Cuando no me comuniqué con ellos,
When
segundo día mis padres-
I left, 2 days after that, my family began looking for me. They were concerned. I only was able to see their messages via Facebook 4 days after. I felt bad. I really felt bad. I felt that I had betrayed their trust, and they were worried. They were trying to contact all my friends, and no one can give an answer as to my whereabouts.
Now, what about your boyfriend? Was he worried as well?
Sí, me había
Yes,
dejado-
he had left me thousands of messages. I told him as I was at a friend's house.
So nobody in Venezuela knew that you were on your way to Trinidad.
Nadie supo hasta el momento que
No
estaba
one knew
asustada.
that I had come to Trinidad until the moment when I was at a supermarket with persons who I did not know. and I did not want to be there. I tried to leave, but they warned me that if I did, something bad would happen to me. One of the girls secretly lent me a phone, and this is when I called my friend and explained everything.
Now there was this party. Before we go on, what was the arrangement after the party? Tell us about that.
El día después de la fiesta, él
After
me
the
fue a
party,
recoger
the
tipo
day
10 de la
after,
mañana.
the taxi came to pick me up at 10 a.m. The driver asked if I had an ID card because the Guardia Nacional would ask for ID on the way. The trip was 2.5 hours. The guards did stop us. They did search the car and they did search the baggage. Then we arrived at Tucupita at night. I remained at a house where I had to wait, and then the next day I was taken by somebody else who came to pick me up, and I was taken to a supermarket.
So I guess the supermarket is all part of the setup. Is that right?
Ahí estaba.
The supermarket has a room, a waiting room, where from there they take us to the boat. Once I was in that supermarket, in that room, I suspected something, and I began feeling afraid. There was one girl with me, and I began asking questions. And she then asked me questions and asked me if my friend told me the truth about what I was going to do. I told her my friend told me that I can come and work at a restaurant, and this girl answered that if my friend had not said the truth, then I had come for something else.
So the plan was to stay one night, but you ended up staying 5 nights at the supermarket. Why did that happen?
Porque
Because they told me that the Coast Guard was on alert and we could not do the trip.
So which Coast Guard? Venezuelan Coast Guard or Trinidad and Tobago's Coast Guard?
Trinidad Coast Guard.
So for the nights that you stayed in the room, were you allowed to come out, or you all had just to stay there in that room till you were ready to leave?
no podía.
No, we were not allowed to go out. We had a restroom there. They gave us food, but we were not allowed to go out.
Any means of communication, radio, television, telephone?
No, there was no means of communication.
Now, is this supermarket located near to a port of entry to Venezuela?
Sí.
Yes.
How did you feel about this? You just had closed for one night, but you had to stay 5 nights. You couldn't come out, you couldn't communicate with anyone. You all were just locked in this room. How did you feel about that?
Me sentí muy mal.
I
Me
felt
sentía
very,
ahogada,
very bad. I felt
porque
as though
quería irme de
I
donde
was
estaba,
drowning.
estaba arrepentida.
I felt remorse. I was so sorry. I wanted to leave. I thought of my family, that they would be concerned. But most of all, I felt fear. Because when I commented that I wanted to leave, if there was any possibility that I could leave, they informed me that once I tried to get out of that room, harm would come to me.
So, there and then, you realized that this was not the picture that your friend painted for you, correct?
Sí, fue
Yes.
cuando me di cuenta.
I realized then that it was not what she had said, because they told me that if I tried leaving, harm would come to me. In fact, they told me they would kill me because the person who would have paid for me and paid the taxi was actually not her, as she had previously said.
So during your stay there, did anyone try to harm you, physically molest you, or anything of the sort?
No, gracias a Dios.
No, thank God no one tried to touch me or harm me.
Now, when the boat arrived and it was time for you to leave, who actually came for you?
Otro taxi me llevó hasta
Another taxi came to pick me up at the house, and they took us to a bus where other persons also would board to get on, to go.
Now, these other persons, were they part of the cargo to come to Trinidad as well?
Yes.
Now, do you remember how many people you would have met there?
No conocía a nadie.
I did not speak with no one. I always spoke to the girl who was with me, who came in the taxi with me when I left the city where I lived. And we were always together.
Now, did you see anyone you recognized on that bus?
No.
Now, do you remember what time did the bus depart and how long was the journey to get to the vessel?
Salimos a las 5.
We left at 5 a.m. in the bus, and it took about 35 minutes to arrive at where the boat was.
So when you all got to the boat now, what were the instructions then?
No nos dieron ninguna.
No instructions were given. They took the baggage, they told us to sit where we could find space.
On the boat?
Yes.
Now, do you remember how many of you boarded that boat?
No recuerdo,
I
pero fueron
cannot
de-
clearly remember. It may have been 15 or more persons.
Were you scared?
Yes, I was very afraid.
Now, did you at any point before you boarded that boat decided, look, you asked to go back home? Did you want to go back home?
No pude hacerlo porque
I
las
could not do it. The
personas
persons who had paid for my fare, they were present.
So when you saw that boat, did you realize that the dream that your friend sold you was not what you were about to experience?
Cuando vi el bote,
When I saw the boat,
me quedé en shock.
I was
No,
in total shock.
Sentía que estaba viviendo una pesadilla.
Now,
Porque
it seems as though I was living a nightmare. Because now, it was not my decision whether I go or I stay. I just knew now that I had to leave to Trinidad. It was either yes or yes. My friend told me, the person who was supposed to be my friend told me that the trip would be for 45 minutes. It did not happen that way. This trip was more than 5 hours. And we came up onto a problem in the boat, and we were there in the middle of the sea and could only then continue after 1 hour. And this is when I knew that it wasn't going to be as I thought.
So the men who paid for you to come to Trinidad, they were there supervising everyone getting on the boat.
Yes.
Were they carrying any weapons? Were they threatening to anyone?
no me di cuenta. en
No,
ese
I did not
momento.
notice. At that moment, all I was doing was asking God to protect my family and to help me.
So the journey started. It should have been just 45 minutes, but it turned to 5 hours. How did that happen?
Porque
At the moment
en
the
el momento
boat
que
was
estábamos
supposed to
esperando el bote,
take off, there was no fuel, so we had to wait for fuel. Then we crossed a river and went to another river. There we stopped to eat and to stretch our legs. It became late, it got late. Then the boat had to stop in the middle of the sea and we spent an hour there because the captain of the boat was drinking, and we had to wait on another man to come, who was the one who eventually brought us to Trinidad.
So you think it's because of the captain's drinking, he went in a wrong direction, that made the journey longer?
It could have been.
So Maria, you're out in the ocean, that boat rocking. Weren't you scared? Wasn't everybody scared to be out in the middle of that ocean there with that boat just rocking from side to side waiting?
Sí.
Yes, we were
Había
all
mucha-
afraid.
el
The
mar
sea
estaba-
was rough. The boat moved a lot. We even had to make another stop in the middle of a very small island because we thought the Coast Guard were approaching, but eventually it was just another boat also coming to Trinidad.
So the other boat coming to Trinidad had Venezuelans on it as well?
Sí, pero
Yes,
la
there were
mayoría-
several adults, but the rest were children.
Were the other passengers on the boat, as you said, were they coming for the same reason as you?
No, lo que escuché cuando
What
ellos
I
estaban
picked
hablando
up
mientras estábamos-
was that some of them had family here, some of them were coming to work, most of them were men.
So when the boat got to Trinidad and Tobago waters now, what were the instructions?
Antes de que
Before
el
the
bote
boat
llegara
arrived
a las
at the
orillas
shore,
de la
we were
playa,
told
teníamos que-
that even before the boat arrived to the shore, we had to get out of the boat very quickly. We had to throw our baggage out very quickly and quickly pick it up. We had to run, but always bending down, bending our heads, and go towards some trees. They told us that we should not let anyone see us. They told us that we were not allowed to walk alone, that we should wait until several persons who were Trinidadians would come to show us where to walk or to show us the way.
Now, what time did the boat arrive, and do you remember where you all were dropped off?
llegamos
We arrived approximately 3 a.m. in the morning. I do not know where I arrived. I only know that it was a beach, and then they took us to like a forest where we had to go up a mountain and then go down.
Now, tell us about coming off of the boat or disembarking. Was it difficult? Did you all have to swim to shore, or was it close enough so that you can touch the shore and run into the bushes?
No, todos nos
No,
bajamos.
I just
Yo
got out very quickly out of the boat. I threw my bag out, picked it up, and as quickly as possible, I ran.
Now, how old were you when you touched down on Trinidad and Tobago soil?
I was 17 years old.
So you're here. Now it's time to see what life has in store for you. You went through the forest. What happened on the other side of that?
después de eso,
Well,
no, llegamos
when
a
we
un lugar
arrived there and we went through the forest, from there we were taken to a place that was completely alone except for several Trinidadian men. Then a van came to pick us up. They took us to a house where I saw the owner of the boat. They said that he was the owner of the house. Everybody began waiting on who was to come and pick them up. The boy that was there asked me where I was going. I told him I did not know, that I had to call my friend. He lent me the phone. I wrote her, but she never answered. By that time, it was 5 in the morning. She arrived like around 10. She sent me another telephone number and I called her. A taxi came to pick me up and the taxi took me directly to a bar. This is when I entered in desperation and began feeling very nervous. I did not know what I was doing there. I thought that they were taking me to her house and that I would be able to stay there.
So they took you to a bar. What happened when you saw her?
Yo nunca la vi a ella. Ella nunca
I never
fue.
saw my
Ella
friend.
nunca
She
se va.
never went. They took me to a bar where there were Chinese men. There was a mature lady who they said was in charge of the bar. They immediately took us upstairs to the rooms. And all I was asking is what I was doing there and where was my friend. And this is when they told me that my friend also worked at that bar.
Now, what was expected of you when they took you upstairs? Did you get a change of clothes, food to eat? What happened then?
Sí, una vez que yo llegué, yo tenía mi ropa.
Yes.
Pero estaba
Well,
mojada.
I had my clothes, but they were wet. So they gave me a chance to wash it. They lent me something to put on, and they gave me food. Then I received instructions from the mature lady in charge of the bar, who told me that I was lucky because that day there was no work, but I would have to prepare myself for the next day, which would be Tuesday.
The mature lady, was she Trinidadian, Chinese, Venezuelan?
She was a Venezuelan.
So what work did you get to do the following day?
Tenía que
I had to
brindarle-
give my service to any man that would choose me.
So was it a bar, a restaurant, or what, a nightclub? What was it?
It was a bar.
So what were you asked to do? Were you supposed to dress a certain way and just walk around the bar or serve drinks? What was expected of you really?
Sí, tenía que vestirme de
Yes,
otra
I had to
manera.
dress a certain way. I had to
tenía que
walk
bajar.
down the stairs. I had to accept if the men wanted to drink with me because this generated money to the bar.
So what was your frame of mind then? Did you decide, look, you're going to go through with it, or you just wanted to go home at that point?
Estaba
I was afraid. I was
miedo,
so
tenía mucho
afraid.
miedo.
I was very
incluso
afraid.
pensé en escapar.
At one moment, I thought of escaping, but they told me that the man in charge of the bar was a very dangerous man who knew persons, and that if I did escape, the other day, most probably, I would be dead. And this is when I just cried and cried and contacted my mother and told her everything that had happened.
So did anyone who came into the bar, did they get a chance to sit with you or speak with you or try to solicit you in any way?
No, porque el bar abrió a las
No,
6:30
they did not
de
have
la
a
noche.
chance to because
Nosotros bajamos a las
the
7.
bar opened at 6:30 p.m. We came downstairs at 7 p.m. The men who were there, they knew, they had police people that they knew policemen. And the men that were there, they thought that these men that were there were their friends of the bar owners. But actually, they were policemen and no one knew. So only after the police took out their arms and said that they were police is when everything stopped.
The first time you had a chance to speak with your mother, what was that conversation like?
Fue el día anterior antes que llegara
When
la
I
policía.
first contacted
Yo la
my
llamé.
mom, I did it before the police arrived at the bar. I called her. I was very afraid. And I told her that I had come here because my friend had told me there was an opportunity to work. And she said something completely different to what was happening. I told her that I had been taken to this bar without my consent. And my mom just began to cry and cry. She asked me to give her names. She asked me if there were persons in Venezuela that was involved in this. I told her yes. She told me that they would do whatever was possible to get me out. She also told me that I should try to escape, and I told her I could not because I would be dead, but that I would try to solve this.
Now, was it hard for you after speaking with your mom to go back to work?
Yes, it
Sí,
was
fue
very
muy duro.
difficult.
So was it a police raid that stopped all activities for the night and, people were arrested?
Sí, todas las
Yes,
chicas
All the girls were arrested. The workers of the bar were also arrested. But the persons visiting the bar were not arrested.
Really? The persons visiting the bar were not arrested, they were allowed to just leave?
Supongo que sí, lo que pasa es que no puedo decir
Yes,
con...
because when the police arrived, they sent us upstairs, and I heard one of the workers saying that the visitors, the police had them on the floor and then they let them go.
And what happened after that? Were you arrested?
Después de eso, estuvieron haciendo...
What happened after
unas
that
preguntas.
was the police interviewed us. They asked us for the names of the persons that were in charge of the bar.
Que estaban
The mature lady who was in charge of the bar told me not to say my age, but I had already said everything. I said the truth. I said I had arrived the day before. I said that I had not started working there as yet. I said that I was 17 years old. And I pointed to the woman in the corner who was the lady in charge of the bar. She said that she had no idea that she had minors working in the bar. She thought they were of legal age. All this brought on a consequence, a stress, and I fainted. When I revived, I then cried with the people around me, and then I was taken to the police station.
Now, I guess I know you were at least happy to be in the arms of law enforcement, the counter-trafficking unit, than for where you were before, right?
Sí, sentí
Yes.
que fue un milagro de Dios.
I believe it was a
que Él
miracle
mandó
from God.
esa ayuda.
He sent me help. I believe He sent help for all of us that were there, because I was not the only one that was forced to be there. The majority of them were there and they did not want to be there.
You were arrested, you were taken to the station. What happened after that?
Bueno, pasamos una noche. Sacaron a las menores a otra
That
habitación
night,
y las
the
mayores
minors were
las dejaron
separated from the
en
adults.
donde estaban.
We were interviewed,
Nos
and the next day,
interrogaron.
the Venezuelan embassy visited us. We were again interviewed. We were taken to do a medical checkup, and then we were given food, and then we were taken to do other medicals, and then taken to home.
So Maria, know that you are safe in the arms of the right people. What would you like to say to your friends back in Venezuela?
Quisiera decirles que no se puede confiar en nadie, que no todo es como te lo pintan.
What I want to
porque
tell
muchísimas veces
everyone is that
te dicen
you should
algo,
not
pero
trust any and
cuando
everybody.
vas hacia ese lugar,
You cannot trust everyone that tells you that you can come to this place and you will be able to work and everything would be okay. No, there is a network of traffickers that will try to make you leave from 17 and even younger than 17. They would want you to make this trip. But believe me, even though the situation in Venezuela is difficult, even though you may not have all the resources, and even though your parents may not be able to give you all that you wish, there is a reality, and I say this generally. The most important thing is always health, your family, the people that love you, your meals. It doesn't matter how little it is. It doesn't matter how humble it is. But you should not leave Venezuela looking for other horizons and looking for other ways, the way that I did.
pero por favor, se los pido de todo corazón, por todo lo que yo pasé, que no es nada fácil.
Please,
No es
please,
fácil
please,
que tú
I
confíes
beg
en
you
una persona
from my heart, This is not easy. You cannot confide in people that you do not know. They will tell you one thing, but it really is another. And you can then fall the way that I did. I must give thanks to God that I was able to get help. And if ever something like this should happen to you, that you were brought here, fooled, thinking it was something else, there are agencies, there are people who can help you. And they have helped me as though they were my family, even though they didn't have to. And they will help you too. We are trying to save you. And one more thing that I would like to mention to all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I would like to clear this up, that not every woman that leaves Venezuela to come to Trinidad comes to prostitute herself. Some come to look for a work that dignifies because they have children and they have family. They are looking for a better future that Venezuela at this time cannot give them. I asked all the people of Trinidad and Tobago, please, from the bottom of my heart, whenever you see a Venezuelan woman, do not look at her in a bad manner. Not all of us think the same way. Not all of us have the same motive. We just want to progress.
So there you have it, folks. That was Maria's story. As sad as it is, at least she is one who was rescued. There are thousands of stories like Maria's. As much as they come to hand, in conjunction with the Counter Trafficking Unit, we will bring them to you. The objective here is for our friends in Venezuela to learn from this experience. Thank you very much for joining us. See you again next time.
The Ministry of National Security's Counter-Trafficking Unit, led by Director Alana Wheeler, continues its work to investigate human trafficking in Trinidad and Tobago. 4 persons appeared virtually before the Port of Spain Magistrates Court on Friday, April 16, 2021, on 8 criminal charges collectively for human trafficking and offences under the Children's Act. Following an exercise early on the morning of Tuesday, April 13, 2021, with officers of the TTPS Special Investigations Unit, Special Task Force, Guard and Emergency Branch, Emergency Task Force, and Crime Scene Investigations Unit, the CTU led a team of officers into Diego Martin Blue Basin area. 4 persons were subsequently charged for sex trafficking of a Venezuelan minor. Mr. Karen Pascal, Mr. Shaquille Noel, Mr. Jose Rafael Sozano Perez, and Mr. Kuda James. Both Mr. Pascal and Mr. Noel were charged with receiving, transporting, and harboring a child for the purpose of child trafficking. Mr. Pascal was additionally charged with knowingly receiving a financial benefit from the offence of trafficking in persons, causing a child to prostitute, controlling a child prostitute, and facilitating child prostitution. Mr. Perez was charged with receiving and transporting a child for the purpose of child trafficking, while Mr. James was charged with sexual penetration of a child. Venezuelan Geraldine Abro, 19, and Clement Aliong, 30, have been charged with trafficking in persons and false imprisonment. Aliong was also charged with kidnapping. The charges were laid after a report was made that 2 Venezuelan women were kidnapped on April 23, 2021. Officers of the Special Investigations Unit, the SIU, with the assistance of the Multi-Option Police Section, the Counter-Trafficking Unit, the CTU, and the TTPS crime scene unit proceeded to the southern main road in Canupia, where 2 Venezuelan women were found and rescued. 2 Venezuelans have been charged following an intensive investigation by the Special Investigations Unit Special Task Force with the assistance of the Counter-Trafficking Unit and Interpol. Pedro David Hernandez Petete, 29, was charged with transporting a person within Trinidad for the purpose of exploiting that person for prostitution and for procuration of prostitution. Nohemi Del Rosario Velasquez, 22, was charged with procuration for prostitution. On June 2, 2021, based on intelligence and following painstaking inquiries and surveillance, officers with the assistance of the Northeastern Division Task Force intercepted 2 vehicles at Bamboo Settlement No. 2, Valsain, transporting 9 Latin American nationals, inclusive of a minor. 2 Trinidad and Tobago nationals were also arrested. Inquiries and interviews were conducted, which led to the execution of a search warrant at Central Park, Balmain, Cuba, where 3 persons were charged and detained. Also assisting in the execution of the search warrant were members of MOPS and the crime scene unit. The Counter-Trafficking Unit continues to work closely with law enforcement partners to investigate trafficking in persons in Trinidad and Tobago. If you know or suspect human trafficking activity, call the toll-free 24-hour hotline 800-4288, 800-4CTU. I am Nicole Romani for Eye on Dependency News.